Hello, everybody.
Oh, hello.
Today we are going to be doing another deck profile of, the last deck I did was kind of strange. This deck is, I think, one that was hyped a while back, never really caught on, didn't really make sense in the meta, but I do think it now has potential to be a very viable deck as like a tier 2 archetype, especially since things have moved away from trying to one-shot it, and it doesn't necessarily, it can one-shot things in the meta. So I think ADPZ maybe held this deck back quite a bit. But anyways, so that deck that I'm talking about is Reshirom. Reshiram and Zekrom-GX deck. Definitely a hyped deck that never really caught on, but I think this deck profile is really strong. Shout out to my friend Eli here in New York. He's the one who's been really loving this deck for months, putting a lot of effort into building this deck profile. I've made a couple of minor tweaks. Hopefully they're personal tweaks more than anything else, but I think they made sense a little bit. And I do think there are opportunities with new cards coming out that came out in Rebel Clash or that are even coming out in the next set that would make this deck even stronger. Turbo Patch is, I think, one of those examples, but I think this deck is poised to be very good in the meta moving forward. So definitely give this deck a look. Also, check out the battle video I did with this deck against my friend Pep if you want to see it in action. But without further ado, let's just get into the deck profile. All right, so to start off, we're going to talk about the Pokemon. And the main man of the hour, so to speak, is going to be Reshiram and Zekrom. Reshiram and Zekrom, if you're not familiar with this card, has 2 attacks. Its first attack is really the one you're aiming for here. For a fire and a lightning energy, you do 90 damage times the amount of energy that you discard from the bench, up to 270. So you have to discard the energy from the bench, which is something to consider. But if you discard 3 energy of either fire or lightning, doesn't matter the combination, it could be all fire, all lightning, whatever. 3 does 270, and you can scale it down too. You can just discard 2 for 180 or 1 for 90. So that's very useful actually if you're playing against one prizers and you don't want to just run through a bunch of energy, right? That scaling is useful. Its second attack, its GX, might come into use in certain games. For 2 fire and 2 lightning, you do Cross Break GX, does 170 to a bench, and if you've used End's Resolve this turn, you do 170 to 2 benched Pokemon. So if your opponent has 2 Dedennes on the bench, I don't know what decks are doing that, or an Oricorio and a Dedenne, I'm looking at you, Baby Blounds, then this will actually take 4 prizes in 1 turn, which is, I think, how this deck could also beat Baby Blounds. Now, I don't know if this deck is favored against Baby Blounds. It is a 3-prizer style deck that only has 270 HP. Baby Blounds is used to handling these types of decks, but I do think this has a lot of opportunity in the current meta with some tweaks here and there. So that is Reshiram and Zekrom. It is a turbo deck as well, so we are running 3 Dedenne here, just to dig through those cards, see as much as you can. Outside of that, we have 1 copy of Zeraora-GX. Now, Zeraora, it has Plasma Fist that can do 160, so it's a 2-prizer that can do, some decent damage. You also have Full Voltage GX, which allows you to attach 5 basic energy from the discard to your Pokemon in any way that you like. I've actually used Full Voltage in a few of the games that I played. I quite like it as a way of powering this deck up very early, if you don't need to take a quick knockout. Also, its ability allows you to get free retreat, which is also very good for this deck. Then we have Blacephalon-GX. I'm not entirely certain if this is a good addition to this deck, because you might try to use Full Voltage most games over Burst GX. But if you are in a scenario where Burst GX or even Mind Blown would be useful to hit above 270, that is always an option, right? So this is another option for just 2 energy where you can do some big damage. Bursting Burn also for Obstagoon, right? Now, in terms of other Pokemon, we have 1 copy of Tapu Koko Prism, because you can attach lightning energy to Reshiram and Zekrom and other Pokemon. This helps you get both energy for your attackers as well as energy on the board to attack with. I also have one copy of Turtonator, another Pokemon that's a one prizer that can just blow everything up if you really need to. We have one copy of this Oranguru. Oranguru is useful especially because we run Ends Resolve, and that can put an energy on top of your deck, so you're guaranteed at least to hit one energy with that 6, hopefully more. So Oranguru in there. And then finally, we have one copy of Phione. Phione is really good in this specific deck because we actually don't run any gusting outside of Phione. That is something that maybe you want to find room for, but it's really up to how the meta goes and how you feel like this deck fits within that meta. But for now, Phione is that option. Now, let's get to the supporter line. This is going to feature a supporter that... to be honest, sometimes it works, oftentimes it doesn't, and it can be very frustrating. But we have Ends Resolve. Now, if you're not familiar, Ends Resolve lets you discard the top 6 cards of your deck. And when you do, you can attach any of those that were energy to your benched dragon Pokemon. Now, a couple of problems with this. If it was 7 cards, I think it would be better. To be honest, 6 cards is just not enough. It can only attach to dragon Pokemon. So if you have Dedennes on the bench, they don't benefit from that. So you need to have at least a dragon Pokemon on your bench. Second, it has to be to the bench, which is also kind of annoying. Yeah, I think all of those things make this card not as great as you would hope. But in this deck, as a turbo version, I think this does have some potential. Outside of Ends, we have the more reliable Welder. Welder just lets you attach a couple of fire energy. And then we also have Marnie. So your draw engine is Welder and Marnie primarily in this deck. Marnie, just because you don't want your opponent to have large hand sizes at the late game when they can maybe take a knockout. Marnie's just good for sort of disrupting your opponent, which this deck I think needs. Now, that's the supporter line. In terms of the items, we have some of the things you might expect. We have 4 copies of Quick Ball here. Quick Ball can search out any of these Pokemon. And then we have 3 copies of Cherish Ball. Like I was saying, because you are a turbo deck, Cherish Balls can go get you most of your Pokemon, including those Dedennes or Reshiram and Zekroms. We also have 3 copies of Pokégear here to hopefully find your Ends Resolves, your Welders, etc. And let's see here. We have 3 copies of Switch, because your opponent might play Plant. This is one that I actually cut a copy of Switch because we run Zeraora. I didn't think it was necessary to run 4 Switches. It depends really on how popular Plant is in the deck, in the decks that you're playing against. Now, this is 2 other cards that I think are really good inclusions in this deck because of Ends Resolve, which is Ordinary Rod. Late in the game, you might have a bunch of energy in your discard. You may not have a way to get it back out. So Ordinary Rod allows you to put that energy back into your deck. If you have a very small deck as well, and you just need to take that last KO or 2, Ends Resolve into that last energy you probably put into your deck. So a couple of Ordinary Rods are really good for that. And then this is what I put into the deck that maybe diverted a bit from Eli, which was Island Challenge Amulet. This is primarily to be put onto Dedennes, just so your opponent doesn't take as many prizes. You could throw this onto a Reshiram and Zekrom, depending on the matchup, so that they're not taking 3 prizes. I could see that in against something like a Dragapult maybe. Dragapult's doing 130. You throw an Island Challenge Amulet on. Now, that's not going to stop the damage counters. There might be other decks that's useful in, but generally speaking, that's for Dedenne. Now, in terms of the stadiums, you have 1 Giant Hearth to find some of your fire energy, 1 Heat Factory, because yes, this is a turbo deck and we want to draw. We also have 1 copy of Lysandre Labs, which is, I think, different for this current meta. Not a lot of people are playing Labs, because also we have Tool Scrappers. But Labs is really good for turning off those big charms that maybe get in the way of taking a 1-hit KO. Now, Labs is also one where maybe you would consider playing Tool Scrapper over that now that you have an item card, but in terms of stadiums, you still want to bump your opponent's stadiums. Labs can be good for that. Now, getting into the energy. Obviously, we're playing fire and lightning energy. So let's go through the fire energy first. We have, let's see here, 5, I believe this is 10 fire energy in this deck. And then we also have 8 lightning energy. So not a perfect split because we're running welder, but a 10-8 split of fire and lightning. I didn't feel like I had any issues finding fire or lightning energy when I was playing this deck. So I think this is a very appropriate count of fire and lightning energy. But that is the deck profile. Let me know what you think about this deck. If you're looking to give Reshiram and Zekrom a try, if you were hyped about it back in Cosmic Eclipse, but just that hype fizzled for a variety of reasons, I think this is a really good opportunity to get back into the deck, see how it feels. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments, and thank you for watching. You can catch the deck in action as well, like I said, in a battle video that either is out or will be coming out very soon after this. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in a future video. Carpe awesome.